Hello language students and noble academics, and welcome to Metatrons Academy. Have you ever had the problem of trying to memorize vocabulary in order to enhance your ability to speak the second or third language that you're trying to tackle, and yet no matter what you do, those new words just do not stay into your memory? Well, on this video today, which will be divided into two sections, we'll be discussing first all the evidence-based strategies and techniques which have been proven to help you optimize vocabulary retention and the ability to remember newly acquired lexicon. After which, in the second part of this video, we'll be discussing the difference between short-term memory and long-term memory, trying to understand how to make sure that all the words you learn go into the latter. As you're trying to learn a new language and trying to become fluent, one of the most common problems for individuals who are trying to reach fluency in another language is the fact that learned vocabulary may not stay in their memory, leading to frustration and hindered progress. In order to combat that, I will now discuss 5 empirically validated techniques that can significantly enhance your ability to internalize vocabulary. Mnemonic devices, contextual integration, spaced repetition, multisensory engagement, peer instruction. Mnemonic devices are cognitive strategies that facilitate the association of novel information with pre-existing knowledge structures. For instance, when attempting to learn a word, one might create a vivid mental image to be associated with a new word. The more unconventional and memorable the mnemonic, the higher the likelihood of success recall. Employing mnemonic devices for challenging vocabulary items has been observed to mark an improvement in your ability to retrieve said vocabulary at a later time. Just to give you an example, if I was trying to remember the word phosphorus in English and I was struggling to remember the sound, a good idea could be to create a picture representation and think number 4 for us, 4 for us, phosphorus. Another silly example that I actually used to try and remember a word in Japanese, but remember, the sillier the better, was to try and remember the word wataru, which means to cross, like when you cross a road or a river. Since a lot of Japanese verbs do tend to end with the syllable ru, all I needed to try and remember was wata, and a good way to remember that was for me to associate it with Bruce Lee. Every time I would have to recall the idea of crossing a road, I would imagine Bruce Lee crossing it with a flying kick. Good luck for getting that one now. Contextual integration. In order to truly grasp the nuances of novel vocabulary, it is essential to comprehend how these words are employed in an authentic context. Rather than simply memorizing the contextualized definitions, it is important to try and integrate new words into meaningful sentences or narratives. For example, when learning the word candid, one might construct a sentence such as, "During the interview, the celebrity provided a candid response regarding their personal life." By creating rich contextual associations, you will cultivate a much more meaningful representation of the word, its meanings, usage, and connotation. Spaced repetition is a learning paradigm that entails reviewing information at progressively increasing intervals. In other words, when trying to master a word, instead of just repeating it constantly, give yourself pause, repeat it a few times, then let some time elapse, and try again after a couple of hours, then try again after a day, then try again after 3 days, and then continue this and space it out all the way up to 1 week. And if you'll be able to still remember it, it means that this has indeed facilitated your long-term retention. Numerous spaced repetition applications and flashcard systems are readily available to assist you in implementing this strategy effectively. Empirical evidence suggests that engaging multiple sensory modalities can significantly enhance memory retention. When acquiring new vocabulary, endeavor to involve as many senses as possible, transcribe the words, articulate them audibly, and even attempt to associate them with a distinctive olfactory or gustatory stimulus. For example, when learning the word aroma, one might light a scented candle during the study session. By engaging multiple sensory pathways, you will foster more robust neural connections at a synaptic level. One of the most effective methods to consolidate your understanding of new vocabulary is to engage in peer instruction. By peer instruction, we mean that when you're trying to learn another word, you need to also at the same time try to engage another individual. When you try to explain that word to someone else, you are then compelled to clarify your own comprehension and articulate the concept in your own words. Believe it or not, one of the best ways to learn is to teach, as by sharing your knowledge you will at the same time reinforce your own understanding and comprehension, contributing to your own lexical development. Depending on how long you've been in the field of language learning, or if you've been experimenting in the field of theoretical linguistics, you will have heard that there is in fact a massive difference between short-term memory and long-term memory. Well, let me explain what that difference exactly is and how we can use this knowledge and comprehension to our advantage. The distinction between short-term memory and long-term memory is a fundamental concept in cognitive psychology and neuroscience, as well as language learning. The two types of memory differ in terms of their capacity, duration, and the neural mechanism underlying their formation and retrieval. Generally speaking, when discussing the difference between long and short-term memory, there are 5 specific instances or items that we should cover: capacity, duration, encoding, retrieval, and neural mechanism. It is very intuitive due to its name that short-term memory has a very limited capacity in the amount of words and information that it can store before new information arrives, as opposed to long-term memory, which instead has a sort of, we could say, virtually unlimited space when it comes to how much information can be stored for an extended period of time. Short-term memory is characterized by a brief duration lasting from a few seconds to a few minutes. Information that is stored in short-term memory is easily displaced by new incoming information or disrupted by distractions. That's why, even though short-term memory can be great when you don't have an ability to perhaps write something down and you just ask someone for their phone number and you repeated it a few times and yes, it's there, you can say it, but if something happens, someone calls you and you get distracted, the number is gone. Long-term memory instead can persist for days, months, years, or even a lifetime. Once information is consolidated and stored in long-term memory, it becomes relatively stable and resistant to forgetting. Short-term memory encoding involves maintaining information in a readily accessible state through rehearsal or active maintenance. The process is often acoustic or phonological in nature, relying on the temporary storage of sound-based information. On the other hand, long-term memory encoding involves the transformation and integration of information into existing knowledge structures. This process is more semantic and meaningful, involving the information of association and the extraction of key features from the information. And a great way, which I've already briefly mentioned on this channel, to make sure that encoding is done correctly, in the sense that the whatever information that we're trying to store is in fact passed and encoded into long-term memory, is to connect it to experience. The more significant the experience, the more of a lasting piece of information it will be in your mind. Also, the quality of said experience is very important in connection to how information is encoded in your long-term memory. In other words, if you are having fun while you're trying to remember something, the quality of said experience will very much increase your ability to encode it. Short-term memory retrieval is relatively fast and effortless, as the information is readily available in the working memory state. Retrieval often involves a simple recall or recognition of a temporary stored information. On the other hand, long-term memory retrieval can be more complex, requiring the activation of specific neural pathways and the reconstruction of stored information. Retrieving long-term memory can involve 3 specific processes: recall, recognition, and cued recall. Short-term memory is thought to rely on temporary changes in neural activity, primarily occurring in the prefrontal cortex and other associated brain regions. These changes involve the sustained firing on neurons and the maintenance of information through recurrent neural networks. Long-term memory formation and storage involve structural changes in the brain, such as the strengthening of synaptic connections through a process called long-term potentiation. The hippocampus plays a crucial role in the initial encoding and consolidation of new information into long-term memory, while the neocortex is involved in the long-term storage of retrieval of memories. It is also important to understand that both short-term memory and long-term memory are useful in different situations for very different tasks, and we shouldn't really imagine that everything needs to constantly be moved into long-term memory. In fact, short-term memory can be very useful in situations where long-term memory could not be possibly activated. Short-term memory typically handles immediate, task-relevant information, such as the before-mentioned remembering a phone number or keeping track of any steps that are needed in a complex cognitive task. With that being said, when it comes to both beginners and advanced language learners, it is very important to focus and fully understand long-term memory and how to activate it properly, as long-term memory will encompass a wide range of information, including declarative memories such as facts and events, procedural memories such as skills and habits, and episodic memories such as personal experience, in connection to semantic memories, general knowledge about the world. With subsequent videos and perhaps even a full video series, we will be discussing how to fully harness the power of long-term memory in combination with a good usage and understanding of short-term memories and what instances pertain to what. So if you're interested in these sort of topics and you enjoyed this video, please remember to leave me a like and subscribe to this channel for more content from the Metatron. Thank you very much for watching, and remember, the Metatron has spread his wings. Goodbye.